What's going on, bingers? It's Jake here. With the new year, we got some new style of videos we want to try out for you. For example, something that talks about the movies that got a bad rap, whether from the critics or the fans, but in our opinion, we love them. Right now, I'm going to talk about the movie that got shade from both, the 2005 adaptation film of Fantastic Four. Okay, so let me start with the plot for the film. Critics had complained that the story was based more on characters rather than plot. The thing I liked most about the film was the character's origin and their adventure that they're going through. For a movie that's just under 2 hours, I can honestly say the plot gave me enough information that made the movie feel longer than it actually was, but in a good way. It gives you all the information you need, especially if the person watching the film doesn't read or never heard of the characters from the comics. Another small thing I appreciated, it didn't insert unnecessary information, like how they all knew each other in college or the beginnings of a love triangle forming between Sue, Reed, and Victor. It gave just enough information that kept me interested, but not so much that was overwhelming. As if they left out enough info so that I can figure out for myself what happened, like a sense of mystery of the character's connection. Personally, I feel that the movie tells you their story in sections. Within the first 15 minutes of the movie, it's telling you who they are, what they're doing, the when, the where, the why, and how they get their powers. Next, you see the effects of their powers on their lives and the people around them, along with some controversy from the media in their time, and then becoming even better versions of themselves. With the exception of Victor developing an even worse and more evil personality. And then finally, you see them conquer their flaws or insecurities, work as a team to stop Victor, and accept their abilities and themselves for who they are. Alright, so for this section, I'll start with Victor Von Doom, who's portrayed by the actor Julian McCann. His portrayal of Doctor Doom was criticized for being bland compared to the comics, which illustrates him as a super intelligent psychotic villain. In a behind the scenes video from this Fantastic Four movie, Stan Lee even said, "He's the world's worst villain, but he never did anything illegal. All he wanted to do was rule the world. He had diplomatic immunity. He's the only villain in the comics to be king of his country with diplomatic immunity, and that's why I like him." So, one of the problems the critics and the fans had was they felt he wasn't intimidating enough for the role. With the knowledge I now have on Doctor Doom and his background, I'm still impressed with his portrayal. Given the tone of the film, they couldn't go too dark with it, as opposed to the 2015 Fantastic Four film. Right off the bat, the movie has Reed and Ben staring at the statue of Victor Von Doom. Only a minute or two afterwards, you see this obnoxiously large building that Victor operates out of. Along with the dialogue with Reed and Ben about Victor, you can already gauge what his personality is like. That typical power-hungry, arrogant CEO type. He wants everything under his control and to be done his way. As Victor starts losing control of the things he has and wants in his life due to the failed space mission, you see him start to go crazy and a steady decline in his mental health. As he starts to realize the power he's developing, in his mind, he's thinking less about what he can do to stay on top and more about doing whatever's necessary to stay on top, which to me is a good development for any villainous type character like him. As for the Thing, played by Michael Chitlis, people had an issue with how he looked as compared to the comics. Some referred to him as a round little man in a big rubber muscle suit. Or they said Chitlis is the shortest member of his fellow cast members, when in the comics the Thing is a 6-foot tall mountain of rock. Also, how the lack of the caterpillar eyebrow. Let's move past that for a second and give an academy, seriously, to the makeup and costume people for putting together a real-life costume with no CGI involved. Let's be real. CGI hasn't always been kind to us in the past, like when Eric Bana portrayed the Hulk. Too far back? Okay, how about this? When Jamie Bell portrayed the Thing in 2015 remake of the Fantastic Four. The Last Airbender, any Robert Rodriguez children's film. Just because a film has CGI'd characters or effects doesn't always mean better. With the costume, they tried it, and I thought it was awesome. As for Johnny Storm and Reed Richards, played by baby Chris Evans and Ian Guffin, I really did enjoy their performances. Chris Evans did get some blowback from the critics because they described Johnny as being more the MTV extreme sports kind of guy. To be honest, that's why I liked him the most, though. Chris Evans portrayed this character in a way that made me envy him. You know, he rode motorcycles, he did snowboarding, motocross, and of course he got all the girls. Someone the guys envy and the girls love. That's how I feel Johnny Storm should be played as a character. And when you think about it, the year the movie came out, that was like the style, you know? MTV at its peak, punk rock and indie type music was being played on the radio all the time, white boys and beanies. That was like one of the main styles back then, so it makes sense that Johnny would embody some of those trends or styles. Ian Guffin also received really good feedback as well, as he should. For an origin story, I feel like Reed as a character had to go through some things to become the leader he needed to be. In the beginning of the film, we see he was a genius, but also sort of a pushover. As the film progresses, after being pushed over by Victor, facing Sue about the relationship they once had, learning to let loose by Johnny and be more forward from Ben, you see Reed not only turn into the leader, but also become a more courageous version of himself. I guess I see him as a relatable character. You know, I'll be honest, I'm nowhere near as smart as him, but I do know what it's like to slowly progress into a better version of myself. Of course, as the years have gone by, films have gotten better with their effects and action scenes. Not to say films fail to have some good action sequences in the past, but for the 2005 film, we see some great effects. Now again, this is an origin story, so what you need to expect is more of the use of special effects rather than actual fight scenes. But that's not a bad thing either. From Reed stretching his arms to catch a wine glass to Johnny turning his entire body into an engulfed flame, to the accuracy of Sue's invisibility powers, the effects are pretty awesome. Now when I say the accuracy of Sue's powers, I'm referencing a specific scene when she first realizes her abilities. When her and Reed are in that restaurant, I realized that when I rewatched the film, her accessories are all in the right place. The hair tie, the watch, and the bracelets she's wearing, etc. We all notice the little things, and we can probably all agree that we appreciate the attention to detail they do on this film. Speaking of attention to detail, the film is what I consider to be a light film. So it makes sense that the musical composition is very adventure-like rather than dark and mysterious. The music that is composed for the film is unique in its own way. With all the characters being scientists, it's very explorational and dramatic music that they use. Whether it be Doctor Doom himself or the members of the Fantastic Four, their music is really distinct both before and during the time they're shown on screen. At first, Victor has a slightly darker tone of music to really emphasize the power he has. As he starts to lose control of the things he cares about most, such as his money, his company, and his mind and his credibility, the darker the composition gets. With the Fantastic Four, I noticed that Johnny was singled out and had his own scenes where we kind of get an X Games meets MTV meets Jackass type of music. Besides that, when the four members of the Fantastic Four are together, they share the same music composition. Think of the Avengers when they're all together fighting the invasion of New York, or fighting Ultron, or most recently fighting Thanos. That very triumphant, very powerful music they have together. The Fantastic Four has something similar. It was only at the very end of the film, when fighting Doctor Doom and their closing scene, that you hear it. Again, mostly because it's an origin story. Also, the reason I say it's dramatic is because of the violins and the harmonizing in the background. And if you didn't notice it, you'll just check it out for yourselves. So, Bingers, I hope you enjoyed this new segment of Bad Movies We Love. We're coming out with even more videos and more content real soon. So drop a comment below on what you thought of this movie. Is there any details I missed? Are there any films you believe are good even though others may not have liked them as much? Let us know, and remember, be kind in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, click the bell for notifications, and subscribe to our channel. You won't be disappointed on what we have planned next. And as always, stay nerdy and keep binging.